Robin Hood turns beggar. After Jolly Robin had left Little John at the forking of the roads, he walked merrily onwards in the meadow sunshine that shone about him. Ever and anon he would skip and leap or sing a snatch of a song, for poor jolliness of the day, for because of the sweetness of the springtide, his heart was as lusty within him as that of a colt newly turned out to grass. Sometimes he would walk a long distance, gazing aloft at the great white swelling clouds that moved slowly across the deep blue sky, and anon he would stop and drink in the fullness of life of all things, for the hedge groves were budding tenderly, and the grass of the meadows were waxing long and green. Again he would stand still and listen to the pretty song of the birds in the thicket, or hearken to the clear crow of the cock daring the sky to rain, wherever he would loud, for it took but little to tickle Robin's heart into merriment. So he trucked manfully along, ever willing to stop for this reason or for that, and ever ready to chat with such merry lasses as he met now and then. So the morning slipped along, but yet he met no beggar with whom he could change clothes. Quoth he, "If I do not change my luck in haste, I am like to have an empty day of it, for it is well nigh half gone already, and although I have had a merry walk throughout the countryside, I know naught of a beggar's life." Then after a while he began to grow hungry, whereupon his mind turned from thoughts of springtime and flowers and birds and dwelling up on boiled capons, malmsey, white bread, and the like, with great tenderness. Quoth he to himself, "I would I had Willie Winkin's wishing coat. I know right well what I should wish for, and this is should be." Here he marked upon his fingers of the left hand with the forefingers of the right hand those things which he wished for. Firstly, I would have a sweet brown pie of tender larks, Maggie, not dry cooked, but with a good soup of gravy to moisten it withal. Next, I would have a pretty pullet fairly boiled with tender pigeon eggs, cunningly sliced, garnished the platter around. With these I would have a long, slim loaf of wheaten bread that hath been baked up on the hearth. It should be warm from the fire with glossy brown crust, the colour of the hair of mine own maid Marian, and the same crust should be as crispy and brittle as the thin white ice that lies across the furrows in the early winter's morning. These will do for the more solid things. But with these I must have 3 potteries, fat and round, 1 full of malmsey, and 1 of canary, and 1 brimming full of mine own dear lusty sack. Thus spoke Robin to himself, his mouth growing moist at the corners with the thoughts of good things he had raised in his own mind. So talking to himself, he came to where the dusty road turned sharply around the hedge, all tender with green of the coming leaves, and there he saw before him a stout fellow sitting up on a stile, swinging his legs in idleness. All about the lusty rouge dangled divers pouches and bags of different sizes and kinds, a dozen or more, with great white gaping mouths like a brood of hungry daws. His coat was gathered in at his waist, and was patched with many a colours, as there are stripes upon a maypole in the springtide. On his head he wore a great tall leathern cap, and across his knees rested a stout quarter-shaft of blackthorn, full as long and heavy as Robin's. As jolly a beggar was he as ever trod the lanes and byways of Nottinghamshire, for his eyes were as grey as slate, and snapped and twinkled and danced with merriment, and his back hair curled close all over his head in little rings of kinkiness. "Holla, good fellow," quoth Robin, when he had come nigh to the other. "What art thou doing here this merry day, when the flowers are peeping and the buds are swelling?" Then the other winked one eye, and straightway trilled forth in a merry voice, "I sit upon the stile, and I sing a little while, as I wait for my own true dear, oh, for the sun is shining bright, and the leaves are dancing light, and the little flow's singing she is near, oh. And so is it with me, bully boy, saving that my doxy cometh not." "No, that is a right sweet song," quoth Robin, "and were I in the right mind to listen to thee, I could bear well to hear more, but I have two things of seriousness to ask of thee, so listen, I pray thee." At this the jolly beggar cocked his head on one side, like a rouge of a magpie. Quoth he, "I am an ill jack to pour heavy things into, good friend, and if I am not mistaken, thou hast few serious words to spare at any time." "Nay," quoth jolly Robin, "what I would say first is the most serious of all thoughts to me, to wit, where shall I go get something to eat and drink?" "Say'st thou so?" quoth the beggar. "Marry, I make no such serious thoughts upon the matter. I eat when I can get it, and munch my crust when I can get no crumb. Likewise, when there is no ale to be had, I'll wash the dust from out my throat with a ticker of cold water. I was sitting here, as thou camest upon me, bethinkens myself whether I should break my fast or not. I do love to let my hunger grow mightily keen ere I eat, for then a dry crust is as good to me as a virgin pasty with suet and raisins is to stout King's Harry. I have a sharp hunger upon me now, but methinketh in a short while it will ripe to a right mellow appetite." "No, in good sooth," quoth merry Robin, laughing, "thou hast a quaint tongue betwixt thy teeth. But thou hast thou truly naught but a dry crust about thee. Methinketh thy bags are pounced, are fat and lusty for such fine fare." "Why, mayhap there is some other cold fare therein," said the beggar sleepily. "And hast thou naught to drink but cold water?" said Robin. "Never so much as a drop," quoth the beggar. "Over beyond yon clump of trees is as sweet a little inn as ever host lifted eyelid upon. But I go not thither, for they have a nasty way with me. Once, when the good Prior of Emmet was dining there, a landlady set a dear little tad of stewed crabs and barley sugar upon the window still to cool, and seeing it there, and fearing it might be lost, I took it with me till that I could find the owner thereof. Ever since then, they had acted very ill towards me. Yet those birds may say that they have the best ale there that ever rolled over my tongue. At this Robin laughed aloud. Marry, quoth he, that it ill today thee for thy kindness, but tell me truth. What hast thou in thy pouches? Why, quoth the beggar, peeping into the mouths of his bags, I find here a goodly piece of pigeon pie, wrapped in a cabbage leaf to hold the gravy. Here I behold a dainty, streaked piece of bran, and here a fair lump of white bread. Here I find 4 oaten cakes, and a cold knuckle of ham. Ha, in sooth! 'Tis strange, but here I behold 6 eggs, that must have came by accident from some poultry ye hereabouts. They are raw, but roasted upon the coals and spread with a piece of butter that I see. Peace, good friend, cried Robin, holding upon his head. Thou makest my poor stomach make with jolly for what thou tellest me so sweetly. If thou wilt give me to eat, I will straightway hie me to the little inn thou didst tell me now, and will bring a skin of ale for thy drinking and mine.